Leominster City Council meeting is funded in part by DeCarolis Insurance Agency at www.decarolisinsuranceagency.com and by Avidia Bank at www.avidiabank.com.
p.m. We have a public hearing for legal affairs. Mr. Chairman, are you ready?
My mic will go on. There it goes. Good evening, everyone. This is a public hearing of the Legal Affairs Committee. My name is Peter Angelini, Chairman. I'm joined by the second member of Legal Affairs, Ward 4 Councilor Mark Bedanza, and of course the third member, Councilor Pauline Cormier, Ward 2. This is petition 9-23, Elizabeth Wood, Planning Director, on behalf of the Planning Board, request to amend the zoning ordinance pertaining to lot size requirements for a lot division in residential A zone for lots sized a minimum of 37,780 square feet. At this time, I will ask, I welcome the Planning Board Chairman, Mr. John Souza, and the Planning Director, Elizabeth Wood. If you would like to make a presentation, give you the opportunity to do so.
Okay. It's on.
And may I just say, we're aware that you have two petitions before us tonight, so obviously we want to just focus on 923.
We will.
Thank you.
What we've realized, and get a lot of requests and a lot of denials, is it's getting harder and harder and harder in Leominster to build a home. There's only one large tract left up on Liggett Hill. Well, it's good for about 270 to 280 houses, all depends what your configuration is. Other than that, there are some other lots, so it may be good for 20 or 30 here or there. But primarily, all of the new houses being built in the city have been single-family houses on single lots throughout the area. And that's where the majority of our growth is coming from, rather than the large subdivisions. I think the largest one we have was was 24 houses on Willard, or 27 on Willard, and we just did 12 off of Pierce. But that's been it. In doing these studies and looking at it, I observed that we have a lot of older lots, and these are primarily not subdivision lots. These are lots that primarily were developed back 50, 60, 70 years ago. They're at least a little bit more than 3/4 of an acre to an acre and a half, 2, 3, 4, some are 5 acres. But that's not what we're looking at. As we said, we've had a number of people, and we've had to turn down a few, where they're right in that area where they couldn't get that second lot at a 1/4 acre, was 21,000 square feet, or 22,000, round figures. They'd come in, and the second lot is only 20,000, and we had to turn it down. Yet they had the frontage, they had everything else. And we've had a number of people come into that. So what we said was, in order to alleviate that, our history has proved that we don't need a half-acre lot. Back about 25, 30 years ago, and I was here then, they took and we came up with the open space concept. And the open space concept said, if you had a tract of land, 20, 30, 40, 50 acres, okay, you could take and come in and do a grid showing the half-acre lots, the roads, the extension, that you could in fact prove that you could build half-acre lots within that subdivision, make a subdivision to do that. But once the planning board accepts that, then you can come back to the planning board and say, okay, you've qualified 25 or 30 lots. I want to build, rather than building that 25 or 30 lots on 30 acres, I want to build it on 15 acres. And the house lots, rather than being 20,000, are now 12,000. So that the house lots now are 12,000, but all the remaining land is open space. So it's either it goes under the Conservation Commission or a homeowners association or a separate trust to control that land in perpetuity, that it could never be built on, but it was open space. So we got we got Bridle Cross and Saddlebred up off of Prospect Street, and we've got probably 10 Massapog. I'm trying to think of them off now, about 8 or 10 of these subdivisions in the city that have been around now for 30 years, 40 years, 30 years anyway. And we found that those subdivisions with the 12-5 lots have been very, very successful. Not only did he have the open space, but most of the houses were, they're all single family, and primarily they were built the raised ranch style, 13 to 15 to 18,000 square feet, in that range. And you could build them a little bit bigger, but the majority were built because that's what people wanted. But it ended up with a nice lot with a nice backyard and a nice subdivision, plus you had your open space. So that has been successful, and it showed to me and to the other planning board members that do we really need a half-acre lot? Okay? And I say, no, not really. That's why I have to protect it, but we want to keep but we have to have growth in the city. And if we don't have growth in the city, we become stagnant. So we said, how can we solve the problem? We're not looking to open up great big tracts of land, because that's still going to be a half-acre lot. All we're saying is there's approximately, I spent some time on the GIS map looking at different lots and looking at their sizes, and I'm guessing there's probably 50 lots at max throughout the city that would qualify. But it only qualifies if somebody wants to do it. If they don't want to do it, or let's say they get an older couple and they got a big home, said, yeah, I'd like to build a smaller retirement home. They could subdivide their lot, sell the big house, and build a nice retirement home on the 16,000 that we're recommending. We're not recommending going all the way down to 12. We said, hey, if you got 3/4 of an acre, why don't we make it 16? So that's what we've proposed, is not to go back to the 12, but go to 16,000 square feet. Still a little bit bigger than the quarter acre, but it would afford people and some other houses to be built within the community. So we're saying we're trying to address a problem. It's housing in the city, and we also want to keep the control with our history within what we've done. If we made the proposal to go down to 9 or 8,000, that's less than the 12 that we have the history on now, and I don't think that would work. So we want to say a little bit more than the 12 because you're not going to get the open space, but it's still, you have an adequate lot to build a decent home, and would afford some of the older folks in the city, or even not necessarily, but I'm saying there's a possibility to build that second home and retire and still stay in the city. Otherwise, they sell the big home and they move someplace else where their family isn't. So it gives us some opportunity. It utilizes a little bit better utilization of the land that we have, because we can't get more land, And we have to remember, the city has been very good over the years. Almost over a third of the city is open space. So you figure all the big traffic, especially in the western part of the city, is open space. So if we've added to the open space with the open space program, but we really don't have to add any more. We want to utilize the land that we have to the best knowledge.
Yeah. And I just want to echo what John said. We are well aware that we have a housing crisis in the state, and it trickles down to Leominster. We have a need for housing. Most of the city is built out. This allows for a mechanism for more houses, a more dense building, but the houses are not going to be in one area of town. They're going to be throughout town. And then the other piece that I wanted to mention is it does require a special permit to have the second lot at a smaller size, so the neighbors would be notified and have the opportunity to come to a public hearing and express their sentiments before this would be passed in each case. So I support what John says, and I hope you take it under consideration.
All right, thank you. At this time, before I open it up for questions, we have a few letters or referrals that I'd like to read into the record. The first one is from the Planning Board, and it's dated November 10th, 2022. Attention City Council. On 11/7/22, the Planning Board voted 7-0 to close the public hearing for petition 9-23. Petition to City Council for zoning amendment pertaining to lot size in the RA district for lot size a minimum of 37,780 square feet. On 11/7/22, the Planning Board voted 7-0, recommend the proposed zoning amendment as presented in petition 923 to the City Council. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Also, the chairman and I plan to attend the 11/28 hearing in front of the City Council and will be available for questioning at that time. Please consider making please consider making an amendment to the zoning ordinance. And that's regards Elizabeth Wood, AICP, Planning and Development Director, on behalf of the Planning Board. The second letter is from the Building Commissioner. It's dated September 27th, 2022. Members of the Legal Affairs Committee, I am in receipt of a communication dated September 27th, 2022, requesting my recommendation on petition 09-23 to allow lots in the RA zone that are 37,780 square feet to be divided into two lots, one to be the current legal size of 21,780 square feet, and the other to be only 16,000 square feet. I am totally against this petition. By allowing some residents to create new 16,000 square foot lots, you open the door for people who want to split a 32,000 square foot lot into two 16,000 square foot lots. We should either leave the lot size for everyone at 21,780 or change zoning to 16,000 square feet for everyone. If you have any questions or need further information, please feel free to contact my office. Sincerely, Peter Nile, Building Commissioner. We have another letter, a referral from the assessor. This is dated 9/28/2022. Dear members of the City Council, the proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance in Residential A would not change the value or classification of any parcels as they are currently assessed for fiscal year 2023. The proposed amendment requires an applicant to have conducted a public hearing, notified abutters, and had a special permit approved for a lot division. Once the process is complete and plans are registered at the Registry of Deeds, any new buildable lots would then be assessed accordingly. Sincerely, William Connor, MAA, Chief Assessor, City of Leominster. So those are the referrals that we asked for and received. I just have a couple questions before I turn it
Sure.
over to my colleagues on legal affairs and then open it up to the entire council. I mean, obviously, Mr. Souza, when you sort of made the reference about open space plans, which is something that I certainly supported at the time, you're right. The planning board, the city, in hopes of accommodating developers or inspiring them to provide more open space as a component of the subdivisions, we offered what I would say is less infrastructure, so narrower road layouts, denser lots. So the development costs were reduced because the building envelope's reduced. What you're proposing this evening, in my opinion, is quite contrary to that. What we're going to do here is lose open space. We're going to change, in my opinion, I think, some of the character of neighborhoods potentially. And as a ward councilor, I can tell you, people are going to call and say, hey, my neighbor's trying to shoehorn a house in my backyard or in my side boundary. And I think we have to be cognizant that one thing that people, the biggest investment they make generally is a home. And when they buy a home, especially in a residence A district, it's like a covenant, right? So they think they're safe here, this is their investment, and the neighborhood's already established, and nothing's really going to change. But this opens a door to potentially drastic change, in my opinion. So how would you suggest how would you suggest allaying concerns of people who may think that they're going to be put in a position where, you know, they may have a nice open backyard and now
Right.
they're going to have a house there? So what would you tell them if you were a ward councilor?
We've thought about that, okay? And I agree with you. I was wholeheartedly with the open space and work with that. The number one is going to be scattered throughout the city. So it's not a big tract of land. It's a lawn here or a lawn there, or, you know, not so many backyards. But what it does is the process that we thought about that is we said that's why we made it a special permit. Today, anybody's got a lot, they got 21.5, they go to the building inspector and they build basically, this is what my sewage is, this is what I'm gonna get my water, and they get a building permit and they build a house on that lot. And that's by right, there's no control, and it can be right next to anybody. And yes, there's gonna be a half-acre lot, okay? But we have little or no control over that. Once they have that half-acre lot, they can build it any place they want, okay? Those half-acre lots are disappearing, okay, number one. So we're looking at, it's people coming to us for growth, and I'm trying to get some of the pressure off of the city, because on the other hand, we either do this and allow some new homes, or we're gonna start getting some high-rises. We're gonna have to, you know, they're gonna be coming in with more 40Bs. And they don't care about open space. They don't, and it's another issue, but in planning, we're trying to say, how do we control this? And I think that, and the other part that we do around that is it's a special permit. We have full control. It doesn't say they can do it. If there are enough neighbors that come in and there is an issue or there's a problem, then we can say no. It's not a guarantee. It's not actual. It's the special permit process allows us to say, no, you can't do it.
Well, as you're well aware, we also have a special permit in the Water Supply Protection District, right? Or we did.
Yes, we do.
And, you know, people go to zoning board of appeals and get zoning relief? Yeah?
I know.
So if we cut it down, let somebody say you can build on a 16,000 square foot lot with a special permit, they'll be down to ZBA saying, well, I got 11,000. You know, it's close, right? And no neighbors show up because they're working or they whatever, and suddenly this is my fear, John.
No, you know something?
And
I hate to say it, but I'm going to say it. I agree with you wholeheartedly with the ZBA, okay? The ZBA is, I I don't know. I haven't really spent any time with them, so I'm afraid sometimes to really say much. But at the same time, I've seen them give variances where they should not be given variances, and it's and I don't know what their initiative is sometime, or what their care is. I can't control. They can do that today. They can go to any lot in the city, okay, and they can say, okay, you want a 10,000 square foot lot, and when we turn them down, once we turn them down, they go to the building inspector, and the building inspector turns them down. They go to the ZBA, and they get approval, and there's no control, there's no special permit. At least now, people have a method of coming through the planning board, getting a special permit, and if somebody says, gee, I don't have, but could you plant some abrevieties on my side, or are you going to do some landscaping? Can you put the driveway on the other side away from my house? We have control over that. So it gives us some flexibility to get this done. Could it be done today? You're absolutely right. We could go to the ZBA, they can go to the ZBA, get their waiver, and build whatever they want with little or no controls whatsoever. Okay? But we can have controls, and we can work by having a special permit. We do listen to the neighborhood. So we can do things to mitigate and still get that house built and help some people. Because we're trying to help people and trying to work with them. So that's what our goal is, and that's what makes this, the special permit is what makes this unique. Other than large lots and subdivisions and stuff like that, there are no other house lot requirements that require a special permit. Well, unless you're in the watershed.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
if I could, I need to stop you there just for a moment. By law, I need to open up the meeting at
Okay.
7 o'clock, and then we'll come right back to you. So at this time, I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Leominster City Council for November 28th, 2022 to order. Will you all please stand and join me for a salute to the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I am now going to take a roll call of the honorable members of the Leominster City Council, beginning with Councilor Bedanza.
Present.
Councilor Cormier.
Present.
Councilor Arndinger.
Present.
Councilor Angelini.
Present.
Councilor Brady.
Present.
Councilor Deacon.
Present.
Councilor Frida.
Present.
And I am present. There are 8 members present this evening, Madam Clerk. Does the Vice President have any records to approve this evening?
Mr. President, I'm going to need further time on the last set of minutes, please.
Okay, not a problem. If there is no objection, could I have a motion made by
So
Councilor
moved.
Bedanza,
Second.
seconded by Councilor Frida, to go into recess? All those in favor signify in usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 8-0, we now stand back in recess. Mr. Chairman, you may continue with your hearing.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Souza,
Thank you.
was your answer completed?
Yes, it was.
Thank you, sir. In the interest of time, I think I'm going to move on to members of legal affairs. And so at this time, I will go to Councilor Bedanza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Souza, 37,780 is an awful specific number. How did you come up with that?
That's your minimum, that's 21,000, your quarter acre plus the 16,000.
So you backed into it by saying your level of sort of not below was 16,000?
Right,
And you added that to the minimum lot size, and you came up with that number?
that's right.
All right, so you mentioned the zoning board of appeals. And as you know, the zoning board of appeals can vary a lot size,
That's
right?
correct.
Under the statutory conditions. So you seem to allude to the fact that the zoning board of appeals might be a more, not your word, but lax authority than going through this process with the planning board and a special permit. Am I characterizing that correctly?
More or less, yes. I would say that, I really don't want to say that. The ZBA has a plan. They have their set of rules, okay? And the ZBA is a quasi-judicial board. It's not a paid board in the city. They get paid by their fees, okay? So it was set up so that they have latitude to do things. And they have hearings, but I don't see I haven't seen in the past the consistency of what they do.
Well, you're aware, of course, that the standards for a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals are more strict than what you're proposing with a special permit, are you not?
I'm not sure.
Are you aware of what the variance standard is under the statute?
Somewhat. Like I said, I'm not...
Do you know that they have to prove a hardship owing to the size, shape, topography, or soil conditions of the lot to the satisfaction of the ZBA with findings on all of those things?
Yes, I'm aware of that, and it's also not supposed to be financial. And I've seen a lot of them approved on financial issues.
Right. Hardship is supposed to be particular to the property, right?
That's correct.
Not to the applicant.
That is correct.
Wouldn't you describe that as a more strict standard than what you're suggesting with a special
It is strict
permit?
if it was followed.
And is there any, well, look, standards are standards, depending on the people who actually apply them, correct? But apart from that, wouldn't you describe that as a more strict standard?
If you follow yes, it is.
So-
Well, yes and no, because we define it at a certain size, and we also say, hey, we have the special permit process.
But you're a board of permitted uses, right?
That's correct.
The zoning board of appeals is not a board of permitted
That is
uses.
correct.
So isn't it true that your particular special permit criteria will be easier for landowners to meet than the zoning board of appeals statutory standard?
If it was followed correctly, yes.
Okay. So we already have a mechanism in place, right? And as the chairman suggested, there are a lot of lots in this community of various sizes and in various places that aren't developed for one reason or another in established neighborhoods, and we as ward councilors will be the first people to hear about it. If somebody comes along and wants to stick a lot in a place where no one thought a house could be built for whoever knows how long. If, in fact, that person, that landowner, wants to develop that property, aren't they safer, or isn't the community safer to go through the zoning board of appeals with all of that standard in place rather than just a special permit for the planning board?
I don't know, maybe you
The
can...
special permit for the planning board has 13 criteria that have to be met. So I haven't done an apples to oranges comparison with the ZBA, but I do know that the planning board does have quite a criteria that they have to meet.
Has any particular landowner approached the planning board or any member of the planning board with respect to relief from the planning board with this proposed ordinance?
No,
So you have
Not that I know of.
no lots in mind?
nothing.
No discussions have been had?
No.
Okay. And you're aware, of course, of the building commissioner's position on this, correct?
Yes, okay. And he mentioned that we could have, no, we say we can have one division. In the change, you can do it once, and it's for one lot. So you couldn't have multiple lots, a 32,000 square foot lot.
Do you know how many lots this would affect?
I tried to look, and I'm guessing there's someplace between 30 and 50.
And what do you base that on?
Just looking at the GIS and looking at the size of lots and their frontages, approximately, I could only guess at it. And it was scattered throughout the city in different places.
Apart from a landowner approaching you, is there any, you mentioned denials, is there any specific case of a parcel of land that you personally are aware of that someone sought, even though you weren't directly involved in it, to divide it to something less than 21,750 square feet?
Yes.
And what was that?
I think it was on Garfield Street.
Okay. Any other place in the city?
No.
Okay.
That was, and that sort of decided me thinking, to be honest with you. Now, that homeowner never approached us. He came to the board, and we looked at it, and it was a lot. It was about that, right at the very end. In fact, it's almost part of the property is on a dirt road. Okay,
That's an unaccepted street?
Not an accepted street. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield my time.
Councilor Pauline Cormier?
Thank you. My issue surrounded, when you first described it, so you described a bigger area, and if that were to be developed with a smaller size lot, then the remaining, so the smaller size lots would be kind of together, close together,
Yeah, they have to be contiguous.
and the remaining portion would be left as open space.
Correct.
Okay. But that remaining open space is essentially, we're relying on the good faith of the builder, the contractor, correct? Because if eventually, what you're saying is this was originally done to preserve the open space in the city. We're going to reduce that lot size, but of a 50-acre lot, they're going to leave a remaining 10 acres undeveloped as
Okay.
the open space.
No, the open space that was left, okay, had to either be deeded to, it's in the ordinance, had to be deeded to the Conservation Commission
Okay.
or to a land trust, which would, take it out of, or to a homeowners association in perpetuity.
Okay.
So it could not be like, I'll be honest, my son lives on Bridle Cross Road. Okay, those lots were built by Bavenzi, and I think there's, probably 35 or 40 houses in there. And then they're all on 12.5 lots. It's a very nice neighborhood, but all the land behind them, yeah, they've cut trails through them, people walk in it. And there's animals, and it's beautiful open space. And there is an opening onto Prospect Street, so where the general public can also access it and walk on that land. So that's in perpetuity. They can never, a developer can't come back in the future and say, okay, now I want to put in another 20 houses on the open space. No, I can't do that.
Okay. My other question was, have you considered speaking with fire, safety, police? My thought was smaller lots, homes closer together. If you have a bigger house in the front and somebody wants to retire and build themselves a smaller, I'm not talking tiny homes, but a smaller home in the
Yeah.
back,
Well-
how is that going to affect fire?
I can say with fire, you have to have a setback from the property line, and that those standards are approved per fire department codes. So there would be the setbacks from the property lines for fire.
Okay.
None of the setbacks, okay, frontage or side or rear, have been relaxed. So you still have to abide by all the setbacks. Did you remember that we're talking residential A. If I go into residential B, okay, they're on 10,000 square foot lots and they're multifamily homes.
Okay.
So it's much tighter,
Okay.
okay?
Thank you.
Council? Thank you, Council. Any members of the council that would like to weigh in? Any questions? Councilor Frida?
Chairman Souza, this is probably going to be the only city out of 351 that is suggesting more housing in its community than less. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around this one. I mean, we're not even into the second hearing yet, but you have to take into consideration the frontage you're going to be talking about as well. That's going to be affecting the lot. Are you suggesting that someone would want to subdivide the property to build another house to sell it, or for a family member to move into that property?
It could be either.
Open market.
Excuse me?
It could be open market.
Beyond the market. So it'd be looking to sell the property.
It's a case-by-case situation. It's hard to weigh how the owner's going to go with it, but it would be open market. The lot would be available to a family member or to an open market.
I mean, there is a mechanism, and I think most would agree that accessory housing or in-law units, should be established in some neighborhoods with the neighborhood in agreement. I'm not sure there are many communities that are lacking housing in their communities. I know we're lacking affordable housing. I mean, there's no question about that. But and I'll support what the ward councilors are saying. As an appraiser, I hear it all the time. I see it all the time. It's to crowd a neighborhood takes away from the value of the neighborhood. And people that have bought a property, and I think it's going to be coming up to haunt us with a 40B in the Ward 1 councilor's backyard at some point. 40B is supposed to be a great program. It's turning out to be something that a developer can use when he can't get what he wants out of a community. And that's a sad commentary. But people buy their property. Zoning is very important. They buy a property in a zone with 21,000 square feet. They know what the lot size is. They know what they're buying. They know it's Residence A. There should be a comfort level in that the property next door or the ability of the next door neighbor to change that in that Residence A shouldn't be allowed. I understand what you're trying to do. I understand your philosophy behind it. But I don't think Leominster is something, a community that should be looking at that. I don't think we're in that kind of a position. I really have an issue with lowering the lot size. I think back to someone purchasing a home, doing their research. I mean, it's told, the counselor across from me will say the same thing in advising a buyer. You know, you do your research. They shouldn't have to be subject to a change that's beyond their control after the fact. You know what's around you, you know what you're buying, and I just don't think there's a fairness issue that goes along with that. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh, no, you have correct issues. I'm not denying that. That's why we had at the hearing one member from the audience suggested that we change the frontage at the same time, you know, on these lots to, you know, down to 60. And we're not recommending that. We're trying to say that the frontage of the lots, when you go down the street, they will all look about the same. We're talking about backyards, okay? But all of the houses on the frontage on every house that's a quarter acre, the frontage, whether it's 16,000 or whether it's 21,000, the frontage is the same. So as you go down the street, you wouldn't be able to just stick another house in that's really going to look smaller.
So it'll be 80 feet, maintained at 80.
Or it'd be 80 feet. So the 80-foot frontage has not been changed, only the square. So we tried to think of that, protect it. And if the city doesn't feel that, you know, I've seen it, I've seen people talk to us, and I see single-family homes as a plus. And if you go back in history, I mean, we used to have 10,000 square foot lots. There are homes all over the city. They're in 10,000. There are still some lots. We approved one a couple of years ago. It was a grandfathered lot. Residential A, 6,000 square feet. And it's still a residential A. But it was an approved lot back 50 years ago. And as long as it didn't change hands, it wasn't part of another, it's still an approved lot. So those lots are still out there. They're not too many, but they still are. So we were hoping that we could do this, help the housing a little bit, and if it works, it works. Now, as far as affecting a neighborhood, I look at it as going to be scattered. all over the place. And I didn't think, but I'm not out there every day. You are, okay? I didn't think it would have that much impact, and especially, that's why we definitely wanted to have, that this would be a special permit so that the people could say, gee, I really don't want to do it. I've got this problem or that problem, and we can still turn it down. It's not a by right thing. So that's how we try to address that.
I agree with the scattered part, but the one individual that lives in that house that's going to be affected by it doesn't matter if there are 39 others or not. It's that one person that has bought that house, lived there for 50 years, knows they have a security in a Residence A neighborhood, knows what's next door, and shouldn't have to worry about a piece of that land being separated to be able to build another one in between.
Well, that's,
Or to have a shared drive and build it in the back. I mean, there, some 30,000 square, and I understand the special permit could take care of that, but you get some lots that are 36,000 square feet that are like a bowling alley. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
with your frontage.
And if you don't have the frontage, you
So
couldn't do
would
it.
that be a possibility, that you'd have a shared drive, and now you got
no, that
another
would
house
be totally
behind?
separate. The
I
shared
mean-
drives are not allowed anymore.
I know.
That's been pulled.
I know,
Okay, so
and
we
that's why
can't-
I'm asking, is that something that would be subject to changing too?
No.
No.
That
No.
would be proposed?
No, we got a bad history on shared drives.
Yeah, I know.
So no, shared drives are not
Yeah,
going to come back
I've
in.
listened to those,
In
and
that case,
they're horrible.
see, they could come in with we're doing this. They could come in with, like you said, no. One lot subdivisions is very expensive. You couldn't do that either. So we had some people come to us with issues. It's our observations that, well, if these lots are here, if we can utilize it, we don't. That's what we're here. If you feel that it's not something that the city doesn't want to do, fine, we'll go along our ways, and then we'll let the ZBA handle it.
I mean,
Because they could still,
The ZBA is dealing with a lot of, look at how many lots, and you've had them too. I've been at the meetings, and I've had appraisal orders to look at them. There are developers that were buying 1 and 2 and 3 lots at a time that nobody ever thought they'd be able to build on. And then take it to the ZBA or go to the planning board and try to get variances, try to get permission to build on these lots. Some of them probably are all right to build a modest home, but some of them should never have been built, but they're built. I mean, and so I get it. I commend you for thinking of what you think the city needs, but I'm not sure this is
yeah,
it.
it's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
My pleasure, Councilor Frida, thank you. Is there anyone else in the council that would like to opine on this petition? No. All right, in closing, before we move on to the next one, I just want to allay your concerns
Pete, we got to go to
about
the
growth.
public,
Pardon me?
the public first.
Oh, yes, indeed. I'll come back and
Yeah.
allay your concern about growth. Let me go to the public. Is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to petition 9-23?
I think at the present
Oh,
time,
excuse-
can you hear me?
Could you state your name and address for the
Oh,
record?
Peter Latches, 22 DeMaster Drive.
Thank you.
At this present time, I haven't had much time to look at this, but I may be wrong or right. I think a couple years ago, in Ward 4, the people were in Residence B, and they wanted to change the Residence A to protect their houses from a person being able to multi-develop on their property because there's big lots up there. So that's one point I'd like to make. Also, we were doing good on low income, and if you start doing this, would we go down on low income? In other words, we're dragging our feet on low income, since I think we've been making great gains on getting what the proper percentage. So I haven't looked at everything. It's been, I haven't had time to really look at it. Those are two of my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Latches. Is there anyone else in attendance this evening who would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to petition 9-23? And for the third and final time, is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to petition 9-23? Well,
Thank you.
thank you. I will lay your concerns during the next hearing. Thank you. I declare the public hearing closed, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
And 7:24.
You can go right into 1023.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. I was waiting for your cue. This is a scheduled public hearing, 6:45 PM for petition 10-23. Elizabeth Wood, Planning Director, on behalf of the Planning Board, request to amend the zoning ordinance pertaining to lot width requirement for lots in the rural residential zone. And again, we're joined by Planning Chair John Souza and the Planning Director, Mrs. Wood. And I would ask you the same, go through the same schedule.
Okay.
If you would like to give me a little presentation to begin, an overview of this petition and what you're trying to accomplish, and then we'll go through the question period, open it up to the public.
I'll start. This one here was initiated, you might say, by an actual process that came to us for what we call approval not required lots. We gave you the drawings, so this is a lot that's actually on Stagecoach, where they take and they originally came in with a lot that you see here, where they had 3 lots, pretty much straight lined. They went out to the back to get the space and the frontages that they needed. Okay? But we denied that because what happened was zoning says that we have a frontage of 120, but where the house is going to be built, it bumps out to 130
For width.
for width. Okay? So you end up with a small frontage, 120, but where the house actually, your lot has to go out for your width to 130, then come back in, come to a point someplace in the back to give you your frontage that you had. I could find nothing in any planning manual where I looked where that kind of zoning was called for, or what the reason was for it. I couldn't find any. Versus just saying I got 120 square feet, 120 foot frontage rather, and I just go straight back with my lot line. And because you end up with the same lot sizes, because they had to come back with a new plan, and the new plan goes up and goes around, comes over here, and the one next to it goes this way and over, and it was really convoluted. The people that lived there could never be able to figure out where their lot lines were, and it really didn't accomplish anything, and it really made it not right. We ended up approving 2 of the lots. The third lot has a problem at the frontage, but it has an easement on it and some wetlands, so that was not approved. So the third lot was still not approved. So I just said it didn't make sense. It was really a convoluted way of doing it. I said, while we're doing changes, let's put this one through. So it's more of a housekeeping matter than anything else.
We're thinking that it was a typo in the zoning ordinance to have it as a 120-foot frontage with 130-foot width. as John said, we couldn't find a justification for that. So we want to correct it.
Okay.
But your lot width, your lot size stays the same, everything else stays the same. Just ended up with a straight line rather than a bump up.
Right, we also asked for some referrals on petition 10-23, and
Okay.
we received some. But first, I'll open, as I did in the previous hearing, with the letter from the planning board dated November 22nd, 2022. Attention City Council on 11/7/22. The planning board voted 7-0 to close the public hearing for petition 10-23. Petition to City Council for zoning amendment pertaining to lot width requirements for lots in the rural residential zone. On 11/7/22, the planning board voted 7-0 to recommend the proposed zoning amendment in petition 9-23 to the City Council as amended. See attached. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Also, the chairman and I plan to attend the 11/28 hearing in front of the City Council and will be available for questioning at that time. Please consider making the amendment to the zoning ordinance. Regards, Elizabeth Wood, AICP Planning and Development Director, on behalf of the planning board. There's a chart attached to this letter as well on page 2, entitled Draft Zoning Amendment for the City Council. Edits shown as track changes. New language proposed is red and underlined. So, table of dimensional regulations, and above that it's Article 7, dimensional requirements, table of dimensional regulations, district qualifier to the left of the box. Then we have minimum lot area, square feet and acres in one column, maximum impervious coverage,
70.
percent of lot area in the second column. And then there are two additional columns, one labeled at the top, minimum feet, and the one to the right of that, maximum. So what I'm seeing, and correct me if I interpret this incorrectly, but it says here, not Seward, 43,560 square feet, under percentage of total lot area for impervious, it says none, correct?
Correct.
Then lot frontage, 175. The red line change was originally 130, right?
Right, and that was just the opposite.
That's what it is in the book today.
All right.
So the 130 is definitely wrong.
And then the rest of it, 20 feet in the side, 30 front yard, 40 rear yard, 30 feet height, 2.5. Then it's cut off, so I have no idea what's
2.5
in the next column.
number of stories.
Okay. So there were no changes to those?
No.
No changes.
Okay. And then underneath, you have Seward, and it has one in parentheses. So I'm assuming that is acre.
Yes.
And then you have a lot frontage of 120 feet, and the red line change is 120, so that,
Yep.
right, so the red, it's really not a change then on that one?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It's from 130 to 120.
All right.
That should have been 130.
It says 130.
And then the next
Okay.
category is
120.
poultry and/or pig farm. Oh, I'm sorry, not Seward, 217,800 square feet. Percentage of total lot area, none. And then again, lot frontage, 175. There's a red line, 130, so that, similar to what you did in the first line.
Right.
And then the other dimensions remain the same.
Correct.
100 side, 100 front yard, 100 rear, 30 feet in height, number 2.5, and again, that column is cut
Stories,
off,
yeah.
right? And then there's one last, which is Seward, and that's 5 acres. And that's, again, poultry and/or pig farm, 5 acres. And the frontage requirement there is 120 feet. And there's no, I don't see any other dimensional requirements on that line, so.
It blends into the,
It's the same for
Okay.
it's the
all
same.
right.
for both those.
So I don't know if
It's all in the same block.
see what we're looking at here. I'm not sure if that's possible. All right. The next letter we have is from the Building Commission, dated September 27th, 2022, and it's addressed to members of the Legal Affairs Committee. I am in receipt of a communication dated September 27th, 2022, requesting my recommendation on petition 10-23 to allow lots in the RR zone to reduce the lot width from 130 feet to 120 feet. I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other with this petition. I don't see how this benefits the city. You still need the same amount of square footage per lot, but now the lot can have a smaller width. If you have any questions or need further information, please feel free to contact my office. Sincerely, Peter Nile, Building Commissioner. And we have another letter from the Assessor's Office dated 9/28/2022. Dear members of the City Council, as of the fiscal year 2023 assessment date of January 1, 2022, there are 55 parcels in Zone RR classified with Land Use Code 132, in parentheses, unbuildable, because they failed to meet the current qualifications for frontage, minimum lot size, or both. The proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance pertaining to lot width would only affect future lot combinations and would not change the classification of any parcels to Class Code 130, buildable in parentheses, or Class Code 131, potentially buildable in parentheses, as they are currently configured for fiscal year 2023. Sincerely, William Connor, MAA, Chief Assessor, City of Leominster. So those, for the record, were the referrals that we received back. On this one, when you look at the 55 parcels out in, and again, out in the hinterland, or in Residence A, where I certainly agree with you. We've done a wonderful job as a community in preserving open space out
Right.
there. And I'm not aware of any pig farms.
No,
They're in
not
the
that I,
community.
no, I,
So I think we all benefit from that.
Yes.
And I enjoy pork, I might say. I mean, if this is a housekeeping matter, then that's one thing. And you genuinely believe it's a typo that occurred in the last zoning. I mean, with
we
all the
think
time
so. We
spent-
can't find
nonsensical.
any reason, any planning why you would, and it occurred a long time ago. That's been in there. My guess is, and it's a guess on my part, that back 50, 60 years ago, you know, you built a lot of ranches. They don't build as many ranches, they go up to second, 2 floors. Where you might have a big, long ranch, and somebody said, gee, if I had a big, wide ranch, I could, you know, so they changed it to allocate, you know, something like that. But most houses today, with 120-foot frontage, you know, you subtract 60 off, or 40 off for your setbacks, you're still talking about 80 feet. And you're talking about a big house, and, you know, with your setback. So I really don't see how we'd restrict anything. With that kind of land, you could build it back to front anyway, so.
Yeah, I think out in RR, generally, a lot of times, one of the biggest hurdles to overcome is to find a place to locate your septic system.
Exactly.
Because you're dealing in packs and soils and bedrock and stuff, and a lot of outcroppings here in Leominster. So before I move on to other members of my commission, I'm going to sneak in that question, the statement I wanted to make last time about if we're trying, or the planning board feels that we need more growth in the community or we're going to get stagnant, I'd just like to point you in the direction of the MBTA station, where they're threatening 2,200 units that we need to meet our quota. So growth, I think, is something that we need to manage, and I think there's plenty of forces that are out there that are trying to add more housing stock, whether it be 40B or these other proposed state-sponsored sort of schemes, is what we'll call them for now. But with that statement, I'm going to go to other members of my committee so we can move this hearing along. Councilor Bonanza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Souza, do you have the legislative history on that particular provision? Do you know when it was inserted?
No, I don't. We looked back, and I looked at one book, was back about 20 years ago, and was in there. So,
Did you look at the 81 compilation?
I don't know. No.
Okay. So, I mean, obviously, you haven't seen a lot of cases with people coming before you with this, right?
No.
All right. And you don't know of any reason why it would be protective to have the extra 10 feet as lot width?
I couldn't find, I looked in some plans, she looked in some planning journals, and we couldn't find anything that referenced something like that. So I have no idea where it came from.
But let me ask you this question. I mean, lot width serves the purpose, right, of you could have a lot that's, triangular shaped where the frontage has the sort of longest border, and it pinches back towards the back of the property, and then you get into a situation where, you have your side yard setbacks for some protection, but
Right.
the lot could get kind of narrow.
Oh, yeah, sure, but you have to, even with the 120, you got to carry the 120 to the house.
Right.
That stays the same.
Right.
Now, once you get past the house and you get 30 feet, after that it can, oh yeah, I've seen a lot of those, especially on the cul-de-sacs, when they're coming around the cul-de-sac and they're trying to, you get some, but, you carry your frontage to your house. And then it's after that it changes.
Yeah.
Okay?
So
We
in
couldn't find it.
essence, whether it's 120 or 130, you're going to get the protection of the side yard setbacks as well as the lot width dimension.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay, all right, that's all the questions I have.
Yeah. We used to have, I don't know if you remember, we got rid of the, what they call them, wishbone lots. And those allowed a frontage of 80. But then when your house was 120, so you had, and then the house next door, you ended up with people next door lots in front of the house next door to them. And that was a real horror show. And we got rid of that probably 15 years ago.
Okay,
But I don't know where this came, we're even not sure where this came from. And like I said, I don't see any reason for it.
okay, thank you.
Councilor Pauline Cormier? All right, fine. Councilor Brady?
I do have a quick question, just because a lot of the discussion today is going to affect Ward 1. One with the MBTA communities, two with the 40B project. Is this designed to eliminate the pork chop lots, which are prevalent throughout North Leominster?
They've already been primarily eliminated. This will just clean it up a little bit better. Okay? But, yeah, I agree with you that the MBAT thing, I think, of what they're forcing back on us because we happen to have a railroad station I think is ridiculous. And
I think there's many
I
other
just don't know
cities
what
and
to say.
towns suing the state based
Yeah.
with that same argument.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilor Brady. Any other members of the council? Seeing none, let me go to the public. Is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to petition 10-23? For the second time, is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to petition 10-23? And for the third and final time, is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to petition 10-23? And seeing none, Mr. President, I declare this public hearing closed.
Thank you. And you can move right into the last hearing on 1123.
I will indeed.
Thank you.
You gotta give
Thank you
this,
both.
Yep.
Petition 11-23.
Give you this back.
Thank you. Again, this is a public hearing of the Legal Affairs Committee. It was scheduled for 6:50 PM. Petition 11-23, David Cormier, Ward 3 Counselor, Pauline Cormier, Ward 2 Counselor. Request to amend Chapter 13, Section 13-29 of the revised ordinances entitled Handicap Parking Spaces and add the following. Add 3 handicap parking spaces in the Carter Park parking lot on Main Street, map 24, parcel 9, at the southernmost part of the lot. This was given regular course on 10/11. We have public hearing this evening. And a little brief history. We've been seeking to find a better handicap access for events at Carter Park, and working with the Traffic Division, the counselors, the Disability Commission, DPW, the Mayor's Office, a bunch of folks. I think you've done a wonderful job and have come up with this petition. And I think we all agree isn't perfect, but it's as good as it's going to get. And so I would like to, I don't have any questions, but I would like to turn it over to the petitioner, or one of the petitioners, or both, one at a time. And either Councilor David Cormier or Councilor Pauline Cormier.
Go first.
Thank you, Councilor Angelini. Yeah, Council President and I did have the opportunity to go over to Carter Park. And as you said succinctly, this is not a perfect solution, but it's a good solution. This petition cleans up some of the language from our original petition. It directs where the handicap lots are going to be, how many are going to be there. So it just cleans up the language, basically. And like we said, it's not a perfect solution, but at least this gets us in a step in the right direction. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I agree as well. It guarantees some permanent handicap parking in that area, and that lot is attached to Carter Park, although it is removed from the bandstand. It is part of that same property. So having this permanent handicap parking over there, and then working in conjunction with the police department during events, which they have pledged support that they would look to close down the parking temporarily on Summer Street during events and put up temporary signs making it all handicapped accessible, as there's a lot of veterans and elderly that attend events that go on there. I think we'll be able to attain our goal of having accessibility in there to people that need it, and not have to inconvenience the neighborhood either, when there are no events going on. So I think it's a good solution, and certainly in 2023 we'll give the temporary piece a shot, but having this permanent no handicap parking there, I think is certainly good. So I appreciate everybody that worked on this, the police department that met us one morning, Councilor Cormier and I, and the Disability Commission as well, for all their thoughtfulness that they put into this. I think we'll have a good solution, so thank you.
Let me go to the third member of Legal Affairs before I go to councilors. Councilor Bonanza, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I'm all set, thank you.
My pleasure. Are there any members of the council that would like to speak on petition 1123? All right, seeing none, I'm going to go to the public. Is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to petition 11-23? For the second time, is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to petition 1123? For the third and final time, is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to petition 11-23? Seeing none, I will declare the public hearing closed.
Okay, thank you. We are now going to hold the public forum. The public forum is an opportunity for any member of the audience to speak on any matter specifically listed on the council agenda. Speakers will be asked to come to the microphone and state their formal name and address, along with identifying the specific item or items they wish to address. Each speaker is respectfully asked to keep their comments within a 2-minute time frame. The council will not be responding to or answering any questions. However, at the discretion of the council president, clarification may be given. There is one person that has signed up, Alex Lent from the library, our library director.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I'm Alex Lent. I'm director of the Leominster Public Library. I'm here to speak in support of item C27, a proposed transfer of $10,000 from the city's stabilization fund to the library's equipment expenses line. This was previously introduced on the November 14th city council meeting and is on page 4 of tonight's agenda. This funding would allow the library to replace its inoperable security alarm system. That system went offline earlier in the fiscal year during a necessary upgrade to the library's keycard-based door control system. We've been unable to get the alarm system back online, but in trying to get it back online, we uncovered flaws with the system. Most significantly, as the alarm system and the door system are currently configured, the door keycard system overrides the alarm system. So if someone were to find a staff keycard, they would be able to get into the library after hours without having to disarm the alarm system. So these two systems ought to be separated. Trying to get the system back online, we also revealed customer service issues with our current vendor. When combined with the flaws in the system, these customer service issues were sufficient to convince us to search for a new system from a different vendor. So we have identified a system from a Leominster-based company that would address the issues we have, that the city already has a long and positive working relationship with. The system we would like to get would mirror systems that we have in other municipal buildings, including this one, I believe. So I strongly recommend that the council vote to support this transfer. We're always happy to receive money, but in this case, we're particularly enthusiastic about it. We would really like to get our system back up and running. So I'm happy to take any questions, but otherwise, thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak at the public forum? And once again, would anybody else like to speak at the public forum? And for the final time, would anybody else like to speak at the public forum? Seeing none, I now declare the public forum closed. And the city council will now be back in session. And we will move right into communications from the mayor, beginning with money orders. C-30, Madam Clerk.
C-30, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests an appropriation of $656,863.50. Excuse me, be made to the attached special revenue funds, the same amount to be transferred from the stabilization fund.
And C-30 will be referred to the Chairman of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. Regular course. The superintendent did indicate, Councilor Brady wanted a referral to the superintendent's office. I think a lot of these are closed out school grant accounts or to be closed out. So could you note a referral to the superintendent's office, please?
Okay, so C-30 will be given regular course with a referral to the superintendent of schools. C-31.
Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests an appropriation of $27,511.68 be transferred from the highway regular labor account to the cemetery part-time summer account.
And C-31 is also referred to the Chairman of Finance.
Again, first time on the calendar, regular course, please.
C-31 has been given regular course. C-32.
Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests an appropriation of $9,500 be made to the cemetery account from the cemetery perpetual care income account regarding cover and mapping system linked to our GIS software.
And C-32 is also referred to the Chairman of Finance.
Regular course, please.
C-32 has been given regular course. Moving on to resolution C-33.
Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, request a vote of support by resolution for New England Wire Products located at 9 Mohawk Drive, Leominster, Mass.
And C-33 is referred to the Chairwoman of Ways and Means.
Regular course, Mr. President?
And C-33 has been given regular course. Petitions, first time on the agenda, 14-23.
14-23, Gregory Chapdelaine and Caitlin Huffman request that the City Council allow the purchasing agent to award a contract for permitting software for a 6-year period regarding obtaining new permitting software to provide inspectional and licensing services online.
And 14-23 is also referred to the Chairman of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. Regular course, please.
14-23 has been given regular course. Moving on to matters before the City Council. Mr. Chairman of Finance, you have a financial report?
I do. We began the fiscal year on July 1st with a balance in the stabilization account of $20,675,366. Since that time, we have accumulated interest in the account of $61,549, actually rounded to the whole dollar, $550, leaving a balance of $20,736,916. And from that amount, we have appropriated or have scheduled to appropriate or proposed to appropriate the sum of $3,206,287, leaving a resulting balance of $17,530,629, and that is the financial report.
Okay, you've heard the financial report. Is there any comments or questions? Seeing none, we will move right into items under finance, beginning with C-26. Mr. Chairman, are you ready to report?
Yes, C-26, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, request an appropriation of $33,000 be made to the fire equipment expense account, same amount to be transferred from the stabilization fund. This is relative to the repair of the 2016 ladder truck that the fire department utilizes. It's a first-run vehicle. You may recall back in 2016, the city received a grant of some $900,000+ to purchase that vehicle. The vehicle required an engine rebuild, which in fact has been done. I asked the chief today whether the vehicle would be out of service for any period of time, but I guess they got it done pretty quickly. So what happened is they used ARPA money in order to fund the immediate repair of the motor. And this petition would, in essence, place the money from the stabilization account back to the ARPA fund. And it would be my position, Mr. President, to grant C-26, and I'd ask you to check with members of my committee.
Okay, Councilor Angelini?
I would be in favor as well. It's been my experience that the fire department does a marvelous job at squeezing the buck, as we say, and so I would be supporting this.
Okay, Councilor Cormier?
I agree.
Okay, you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-26. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-26 signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 8-0, C-26 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Yes, order that the sum of $33,000 be appropriated to the fire equipment expense account, same amount to be transferred from the stabilization fund. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. All those in favor of adopting the order signify by saying yea.
Yea.
Those opposed, by a vote of 8-0, the order for C-26 has been adopted. Moving on to C-27.
C-27, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests an appropriation of $10,000 be made to the library equipment expense account, the same amount to be transferred from the stabilization fund. You heard during the public forum, our library director explained the circumstances related to the security system at the library. He has the full support of the Board of Trustees, which I am a member of, along with Councilor Shalfo-Zephyr. This was explained to us. We have had a long history with the current vendor, which has been spotty at best, and it was decided by the director and the board to move to a different vendor with a greater reliability and actually a better price. So it would be my position to support the grant of C-27, and I'd ask you to check with members of my committee.
Councilor Angelini?
I'll be supportive as well.
Councilor Cormier?
I agree.
Okay, you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-27. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-27 signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 8-0, C-27 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
I do. Order the sum of $10,000 be appropriated to the library equipment expense account. Same amount to be transferred from the stabilization fund. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. All those in favor of adopting the order signify by saying yea.
Yea.
Those opposed, by a vote of 8-0, the order for C-27 has been adopted. C-28.
C-28, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that the annual tax classification hearing be scheduled for December 12th, 2022, for the purpose of setting the annual factor used for the fiscal '23 budget. This hearing has been established for 12/12, our next meeting at 6:30 p.m. I'm sure the assessors will be down, as they usually do, to explain to us the options. And that being said, Mr. President, I would request further time, and I ask you to check with members of my committee.
Councilor Angelini?
I'm fine with further time.
Councilor Cormier?
I agree.
Okay, you've heard the request to grant C-28 further time. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting further time to C-28 signify in usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 8-0, further time has been given to C-28. Moving on to items under legal affairs, beginning with C-29. Mr. Chairman, are you ready to report?
I am indeed, Mr. President. Thank you. C-29, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that the City Council vote to accept the special act of legislation with language as attached. RE, an act authorizing the City of Leominster to establish an age limit for original appointment to the position of police officer. I have, before I go any further, I have several referral letters that I think are important to sort of set the tone, and then I'll give a deeper explanation if I may. The first one I have is from Chief Kennedy. It is dated November 16th, 2022. I strongly recommend this petition. I know we all have spoken about the staffing affecting my department for the last couple of years. I have carefully reviewed the city ordinances I wish to repeal. I have talked to Fire Chief Sidlow and Veteran Services Rick Vautour about this petition. I don't in any way want to hurt any veterans. I met with Mr. Vautour. I emphasized that this repeal would only help veterans long-term instead of just for 4 years. We are constantly kicking the can down the road and thinking outside the box to find suitable candidates for the police department. With the last last Leominster civil service list, we only saw a quarter of the signed candidates to be viable, and even fewer couldn't pass a scaled-down physical abilities test. This age change will bring in more mature candidates that can do the job of a police officer. Respectfully, Chief Aaron F. Kennedy, Leominster Police Department. The second letter I have is from the Veterans Affairs, Rick Vautour. It's addressed to Caitlin Huffman, our city clerk. Kate, I was asked to provide a response to C-29. This office does not feel that it would be a deterrent to veteran preference. I also see this as another means for older military veterans to be hired. Thank you, Rick Vautour, First Sergeant, United States Marine Corps, retired, Director of Veteran Services. I have a letter as well from Fire Chief Sidlow, dated November 28th, 2022. The fire department supports the acceptance of the special act of legislation authorizing the City of Leominster to establish an age limit for original appointment to the position of police officer. At this time, the fire department is still able to field qualified candidates with a current age limit of 32 and 4 additional years for veterans. I support Chief Kennedy in his request, and I am well aware of his struggles with the availability of qualified candidates with a current age limit and civil service. Signed, Chief Robert Sidlow. So what this boils down to is, as we all know, Chief Kennedy's been down here on numerous occasions, and right now, he finds himself between 12 and 14 officers shy of the staffing requirements. Under the current law, which is Section 58A, I'd just like to read this paragraph because I think it's important. Section 58A, municipal police officers and firefighters, maximum age restrictions. Again, this is the existing statute. Section 58A, notwithstanding the provisions of any general or special law to the contrary, in any city, town, or district that accepts this section, no person shall be eligible to have his name certified for original appointment to the position of firefighter or police officer if such person has reached his 32nd birthday on the date of the entrance examination. Any veteran shall be allowed to exceed the maximum age provision of this section by the number of years served on active military duty, but in no case shall said candidate for appointment be credited more than 4 years of active military duty. So basically what Chief Kennedy's looking for here is a little more latitude. He told me that he has his eye on some candidates, two in particular that he thinks are very attractive, but he's hindered by the 32-year cap under the current statute. So, of course, I was concerned after looking at 58A about veterans' preference. So all the veterans' preferences remain, and so the candidates actually will be able to apply for the position up to the 40th, as long as the 40th birthday comes, they're under 40 at the time of the test. So the chief also told me that the next academy begins in February. So obviously this is something that they're looking for the council to endorse. It's going to go off like the last one we did, which was civil service, the chief and the officers. It's going to be given to the state rep, and we'll try to get a special act of the legislature and give the chief the latitude he needs to try to fill these vacancies on the department. With that, I'm going to go to the second member of Legal Affairs, Councilor Bonanza.
Yeah, I'm in favor of this.
Councilor Cormier.
I would agree.
Any questions from anybody?
Okay, so you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to grant C-29. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-29 signify in usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 8-0, C-29 has been granted. Moving on to 9-23, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President. 9-23, Elizabeth Wood, Planning Director, on behalf of the Planning Board, requests to amend the zoning ordinance pertaining to lot size requirements for a lot division in the residential A zone for lot sized a minimum of 37,780 square feet. As you know, Mr. President, early this evening, we conducted a public hearing. I thought it was very informative. I thought some very thoughtful questions were posed to the petitioners, and I can tell you from where I sit as a ward councilor that I really, really have a tough time with this one. I mean, I've seen this kind of thing happen in other neighborhoods, and I mean, even in my own neighborhood, when I think about how many potential conversions, we'll call them, could happen. I just think this is if we adopt this, it has the potential to do some significant damage to character in neighborhoods. And therefore, my recommendation is going to be to deny petition 9-23. And I would ask you to poll members of my committee.
Councilor Bedanza?
I'm against 9-23, and I'll reserve my comments for the debate portion.
Okay, so your recommendation is to deny as well.
Correct.
Councilor Cormier?
I agree.
To deny?
Yes.
Okay, so you've heard the recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to deny 9-23. Is there any discussion? Councilor Bedanza.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, particularly as a ward councilor, and comments echoed by the councilor across from me, you know, I just envisioning, you know, the couple that bought a house 25, 30 years ago, took out a mortgage, worked hard, paid their mortgage, lived in an established neighborhood, put a lot of pride into the ownership of their home, lived there, raised their children, and all of a sudden, lo and behold, they wake up and they open the window and out they see a house springing up very close to their property line and totally changing the character of the neighborhood. I just don't think it's something that we want to entertain as a city. The requirements for affordable housing aren't really going to be impacted by this at all, one way or the other, positively or negatively. And I just think we're asking for trouble. So I'm pretty much dead set against this one.
Okay. And Councilor Brady, I think I saw your hand as well.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to be popular for this one, but I'm actually in support of this for the simple, I took it from a different angle. I'm thinking of the homeowner that's lived there for years, whatnot, has a large house, wants to downsize, they have enough land, they build a smaller unit, and they can stay on the property which they bought. So it's a catch-22 on that one, but for that reason, I support it.
Okay. All right. Is there any other discussion on 9-23? Seeing none, I will do this in a roll call vote. Once again, the recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee is to deny, and I'm going to do this in a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Bedanza.
To make it clear, crystal clear, so a yea vote is in support of the denial recommendation.
That would be correct.
My vote's yea.
Okay. Councilor Cormier.
Yay.
Councilor Arndinger.
Nay.
Councilor Angelini.
Yay.
Councilor Brady.
Nay.
Councilor Deacon.
Yay.
Councilor Frida.
Yay.
And I will be recorded as yay, so I believe by a vote of 6-2, 9-23 has been denied. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Moving on to 10-23, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President. 10-23. As you know, again, we had a public hearing earlier. This is Elizabeth Wood, Planning Director, on behalf of the Planning Board. Request to amend the zoning ordinance pertaining to lot width requirements for the lots in rural residential zone. It was suggested that this was a typo. It's a housekeeping matter. Therefore, I would be supportive of this one. And I would ask you to poll members of my committee.
Councilor Bedanza.
I'm going to be in support of this.
Okay. And Councilor Cormier.
I agree.
Okay, so you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to grant 10-23. Is there any discussion? Councilor Bedanza.
Just very briefly, I'll take at face value the suggestion that this may have been a typographical error. It's fascinating what the history of it is. Obviously, it doesn't affect a whole lot of properties. Doesn't seem like it's been a particularly difficult thing over the years, but I think the 120-foot width requirement is protective enough, and I'm willing to adopt this.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll also do this in a roll call vote. Once again, the recommendation of Legal Affairs is to grant, beginning with Councilor Bedanza.
Yay.
Councilor Cormier.
Yay.
Councilor Arndinger.
Yay.
Councilor Angelini.
Yay.
Councilor Brady.
Yay.
Councilor Deacon.
Yay.
Councilor Frida.
Yay.
And I will be recorded as yay by a vote of 8-0. 10-23 has been granted. Moving on to 11-23.
11-23. Again, David Cormier, Ward 3 Council, and Pauline Cormier, Ward 2 Council, request to amend Chapter 13, Section 13 through 29 of the revised ordinance entitled Handicap Parking Spaces, and add the following. Add 3 handicap parking spaces in the Carter Park parking lot on Main Street, map 24, parcel 9, at the southernmost part of the lot. Again, Mr. President, we had a public hearing this evening. And it would be my recommendation to approve, to grant 11-23.
Okay, Counselor Bedanza?
I'm in favor.
Counselor Cormier?
I agree.
Okay, you've heard the unanimous recommendation to grant 11-23. Is there any discussion? Counselor Frida?
I'm going to support this tonight, but I really don't think it solves the initial concern that Mr. DeChico had. It does not assist the veteran or the elderly getting from the street to the gazebo for different things that are going on. I think it should still be pursued, whether it's with the DPW or the Historical Commission, however we can manage to get some handicap parking within Carter Park, at least to have a couple. I mean, this is certainly going to help, but it's not going to solve the problem.
Okay. All right, is there any other discussion on 11-23? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting 11-23 signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 8-0, 11-23 has been granted. Moving on to 13-23, Mr. Chairman.
13-23 is Officer Julio Ramos, Police Department, request to amend Chapter 13-24 of the revised ordinances entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic. Chapter 13, Section 13-24 of the revised ordinance entitled No Parking on Certain Streets is hereby amending by inserting the following text: State Street, both sides, from point being 20 feet from the intersection of North Main Street to a point 302 feet from said intersection. We have a public hearing scheduled on December 12th at 6:40. Therefore, I would ask for further time, and I would ask you to poll members of my committee.
Okay, Counselor Bedanza
I'm in favor of further time.
and Counselor Cormier?
I agree.
Okay, so you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to grant further time to 13-23, and also the city clerk is informing me that we did not formally vote to adopt the hearing for December 12, 2022 at 6:40 p.m. So this vote for further time will also be establishing that hearing as well. So is there any discussion?
Just
Councilor Brady.
a quick one. Based on the letter, this has to do with probably most of the residents in Riverside? Is that the gist? I'm just trying to grasp. Because of the smoking and the gathering?
I'm not totally sure.
Okay.
It may have something to do with the people parking there to access the rail trail, I'm thinking, but I'm not quite sure.
Right.
But
We'll find that out in public hearing, yeah.
Correct, yeah. Yeah. Okay, is there any other discussion? So seeing none, all those in favor of granting further time to 13-23 and establishing a public hearing for December 12, 2022 at 6:40 p.m. signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 8-0, further time has been granted, and that hearing for December 12, 2022 at 6:40 p.m. Is established. Moving on to items under Ways and Means. There are several appointments. Madam Chairwoman, are you ready to report?
I am, Mr. President. I do have to report, after the last meeting, I did reach out to our director at OEM, Arthur Ebthal, to discuss with him basically his ways of vetting his volunteers, and he tells me that he does have a system in place. He does vet them. At this point, it would be my position, Mr. President, to grant the appointments of the following individuals to the operations unit. As we know, we're very lucky with the Office of Emergency Management in this city. It's something that we all take great pride in. And I think Mr. Ebthal has done a wonderful job stepping in after we lost our previous director. And I have full faith in him that he is vetting his volunteers. We'll keep an eye on them, and he'll let us know if there's any problems. So it would be my position, and I'd ask you to check with my members of my committee.
Okay, Counselor Arndinger
I agree.
and Counselor Deacon.
I agree.
Okay, so you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Ways and Means Committee to grant the appointment of all of these volunteers. Is there any discussion? Counselor Frida?
Yeah, I understand, with the number of people here and the faith in the director, but I've gotten a couple phone calls regarding some concerns about emergency management. And I think it's really important that we hear from these people who are volunteering their time what their expectation is in serving emergency management. I really object to just approving the appointments without hearing from them. So I'm not going to support this tonight. I think we need to have people come in here and tell us why they want to serve and what their expectations are in serving.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Counselor Bedanza?
Yeah, with deference to the counselor across from me, I looked at the charter and section 3.8 in particular. Really, we're not charged with approving volunteers to any city department, much less the Office of Emergency Management. And we have to trust our department heads to do their job. I mean, and as a practical matter, we don't even see the police officers that are appointed down here or the fire staff that is appointed. We don't see members of other departments come down here, middle management people. I really don't think we should be micromanaging volunteers for the emergency management department. That's just my opinion. I don't think it's provided for in the charter. I don't really think it's our charge. We have to trust our department heads to do their job, and I think Mr. Ebval has not let us down, and I am fully confident in him in the future, and I think he'll continue to do a good job for us.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Counselor Arndinger, I saw your hand as well.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was, when I first saw this, I was kind of mystified as to why we were, approving volunteers, and I think I agree with the counselor from Ward 4 over there that, it's not our job to micromanage, the department heads. If Mr. Ebval wants these people on his team, then he should be allowed to, hire the people that he wants on his team. Simple as that.
Okay. Counselor Brady, I saw your hand as well.
Yeah, I actually agree with both sides, believe it or not. Would it be inappropriate for us as a council to ask voluntarily that these people come down just so we could meet them, say hello, thank them officially from the city for their volunteer service? In that light, maybe meet the firemen and the policemen. I know that used to be tradition. I remember coming to these meetings, as a spectator and seeing that happen. And that's a tradition I'd hate to lose. So, as an open question to the president, could we invite them down and not to confirm, but just to welcome?
Absolutely. I mean, this is a public meeting. They're welcome here anytime. And if they wanted to come down, and they could be sworn in as well, out in the hallway with the assistant city clerk. I don't have a problem, with that. If they want to attend and say hi very quickly, even before a meeting, that's fine as well, so. Councilor Frida, did I see your hand?
Yeah, I was going to suggest if we don't have any authority and we don't have any charge to do anything, why don't we just eliminate having these names appear on our agenda?
We should. I agree with you totally.
Let's, instead of having this discussion, just take them off.
They shouldn't be.
I mean, we talked, the counselor across from me talked about police and fire. At one time, we did have them come in, and it was a good move. It was a good opportunity for the public to see their new police, see their new firefighters that were joining the force. We didn't have any charge, but it was a courtesy that the mayor came down with them, the chief came down, and people had an opportunity to know who was going to be walking the streets, who they were going to might show up at their door if they had an issue. And it was a good thing. We stopped that. The mayor has the authority to do that. But still, it's not a comparison because they're getting paid. There's a mechanism there if there's an issue. There's not the same mechanism, I don't think, with volunteers. So, you know, I just don't think I think the more transparency and the more we tell people who's working for them in the city and who is involved in the city with them, there's a closeness, there's an availability for people to see who's showing up and who's working, and that's fine. I mean, this has been going on. I mean, nobody's that new on this council to know that we've been doing appointments for emergency management for 30 years I'm aware of, and most everybody else sitting here has had one or two every other week. So this isn't a surprise this week because there's a lot of them. That's the reason we're talking about it. So, I mean, if we don't have to do it, let's take them on.
Okay, Councilor Bedanza?
Yeah, I agree. I've been talking about this, I've been thinking about this at least for a while. I mean, we probably get about 30 of these people a year. And I'm going to tell you that there's no doubt in my mind that some of them are resume building. Some of them are great volunteers and they do a heck of a job for us. And that's all fine and well, either way. You know, volunteers are volunteers. You can't require a volunteer to do anything. Whatever you can get from them is positive, typically. But, you know, what are we going to glean from having someone come down here for 3 or 4 minutes apiece, 30 of them a year? What service are we doing? I mean, you know, this isn't story hour down here. We're doing important business for the city. They don't belong on our agenda. You're absolutely correct, Councilor. They don't belong on our agenda. It's not our charge in the charter, and we shouldn't be extending ourselves into positions or places we don't belong. And I fully believe the director of that department can handle this job. And that's where we got our say, is when we could appointed, when the mayor appointed him and we confirmed his appointment, that was our say.
Okay, Councilor Arger, I saw your hand
Yeah,
again.
just in closing, you know, in agreement with the councilor from Ward 4, where does this end? Do we wind up interviewing the volunteers for summer jobs at the rec department? Is that any different than emergency management? You know, so I think, you know, we just get rid of it. So
I agree.
yeah.
Councilor Frida?
Sitting here 30 years, I can tell you there's been some questionable people sitting here that want to volunteer in the city. They're few and far between, but there are some. We all know people in the community, and there are sometimes depending on what they want to do for emergency management, sometimes it's questionable that they should be in that particular position. Would trusting the department head, that's fine. I don't disagree with that, but to say that it's not story hour, it's not story hour. I mentioned before, we had somebody sit here that was auxiliary police that was given a gun permit and got into a serious issue not long after that. Granted, we didn't know it at the time, but people have a right to know that. And whether it's story hour or not, it doesn't hurt to have that exposure to the public on people who are involved in their community.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Councilor Angelini?
I just want, for the record, indicate that I have full faith and confidence in Mr. Alberthal's ability. His resume is impeccable. My interaction with him has been most fulfilling. And he wants to screen the volunteers, that's fine. We don't have the ability to fire anybody, so what are we doing interviews? It's not our place. I agree with the council. They shouldn't be appearing on our agenda any longer. This should be it.
Okay. Councilor Brady?
I just have to clarify, this was not an attack on the colonel. I have full faith and support in him. This is a total separate thing, right? To have someone come down and be welcomed to the city by the city council. That's my point. There is absolutely no indication that the colonel's not doing his job. So I really want that to be on the record.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on granting these appointments? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting all of these appointments? I'm sorry? or confirming these appointments signify in usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 7-1, these appointments have been confirmed. Moving on to new business, there is nothing on our agenda. Is there any new business that has arisen since the agenda has come out? Seeing none, moving on to old business, we have 2 second readings of ordinances. The first one is formally petition 6-23. Is the Chairman of Legal Affairs ready to report?
I am, Mr. President. Second reading of an ordinance. Second reading of an ordinance, 6-23. Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Leominster as follows. Amending Chapter 22 of the revised ordinance entitled zoning, Section 22-4 of the revised ordinances entitled Definitions is hereby amended by adding the following text in alphabetical order. Tow yard, an outdoor storage facility for the temporary storage of towed vehicles. Does not include disposal, permanent disassembly, salvage, or accessory storage of inoperable vehicles. Requires yard security fencing, proper lighting and screening from abutting properties. Screening may be in the form of privacy fencing or landscape design. Vehicle storage lot. Any city, lot, or parcel used for the storage of unregistered vehicles, such as a tow yard, vehicle overflow lot, repair facility, or any other purpose, requires yard security fencing, proper lighting and screening from abutting properties. Screening may be in the form of privacy fencing or landscape design. And further, by adding the following text to section 22-17 in transportation uses. And again, there's a chart at the bottom of the page that explains vehicle storage lot, in rural residential, no. Residence A, no. Residence B, no. Residence C, no. B8, no. BB, no. In C, special permit for the planning board for site plan approval. And in the industrial zone, the special permit from the planning board for site plan approval. No in MU1, no in MU2, and no in the village district. Tow yard. They reflect the exact same. RR no, RA no, RB no, RC no, EA no, BB no, C, special permit, planning board, site plan approval, industrial zone, special permit, planning board, site plan approval, MU1, MU2, the village district, no. Having read that, I would recommend that we adopt the second reading of this ordinance, Mr. President, and I would ask you to poll members of my committee.
Council Bedanta.
I'm in favor.
Council Cormier.
I just want to say that Counselor Angelini has put a lot of effort into this, and I would support adopting this reading as well.
Thank you very much. Is there any, so you've heard the unanimous recommendation of Legal Affairs to grant the second, or to adopt the second reading of this ordinance. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to do this in roll call vote, beginning with Council Bedanza.
Yay?
Council Cormier.
Yay.
Council Arnger.
Yay.
Council Angelini.
Yay.
Council Brady.
Yay.
Council Deacon.
Yay.
Council Frida.
Yay.
And I will be recorded as yay by a vote of 8-0. The second reading of 6-23 has been adopted. Moving on to the second reading of an ordinance, which is formally petition 7-23. Mr. Chairman, are you ready to report? And I will say that obviously it's pretty lengthy. You don't have to read it all, but if you can just summarize, that would be great.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate that, as well as my vocal cords appreciate it as well. This is a pretty lengthy second reading of the ordinance. This was an ordinance that was put together with the help of Weights and Measures, or former Weights and Measures, Joe Quinn, who was kind enough to basically rewrite the entire ordinance and bring it up to MARD standards, some of the fees, some of the practices, and develop a new fee schedule to attach to this as well. So I tip my hat to Mr. Quinn and thank him for his efforts on behalf of the city and the job that he did as Weights and Measures in that position. So this would be the second reading, and I would recommend adoption of the second reading, Mr. President, and I would ask you to poll members of my committee.
Okay, Counselor Bedanza
I'm in favor.
and Counselor Cormier.
I agree.
Okay, so you've heard the unanimous recommendation of Legal Affairs to grant the second reading of this ordinance, which was formally petition 7-23. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will also do this in a roll call vote, beginning with Counselor Bedanza.
Yay.
Counselor Cormier.
Yay.
Counselor Arndinger.
Yay.
Counselor Angelini.
Yay.
Counselor Brady.
Yay.
Counselor Deacon.
Yay.
Counselor Frida.
Yay.
And I will be recorded as yay by a vote of 8-0. The second reading of this ordinance has also been adopted. Are there any other items under old business? Seeing none, is there anything under the community calendar? Counselor Frida.
It's not really the community calendar, but just to remind councilors, you should have gotten an email. The Councilors Association is doing a webinar on Wednesday, December 1st, from 12 to 1:15 regarding budgets. And we'll take questions regarding budget issues.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much. Is there anything else to come under the community calendar? I will mention a couple of things. The city clerk has mentioned to me, and she sees it, hears it every day. The Festival of Trees is going on for Christmas up in the auditorium. If anybody has any interest in that during the week, to stop in. And also, Thursday, December 1st at 6 p.m. upstairs in the Tata Auditorium of City Hall. There is going to be a meeting with Mass DOT for public input and a description of the work that's going to be done on Route 12 from Tossie Street all the way down to the Sterling line. So I would encourage anybody who travels that corridor or who lives along that corridor or owns a business there to be here that night. That's the night to be heard, so that all of the testimony given from the public will be, considered and heard by the powers to be, so that we can all understand what's going to happen there, and they can hopefully incorporate some of those comments into making sure that after millions and millions of dollars are spent, that we get the best solution to problems down on that corridor. So if there's nothing else to come under the community calendar, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Councilor Bedanza, Councilor Arndinger seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adjournment signify in the usual manner. Those opposed by a vote of 8-0. We are now adjourned. Thank you very much.
The Leominster City Council meeting is funded in part by DeCarolis Insurance Agency at www.decarolisinsuranceagency.com and by Avidia Bank at www.avidiabank.com.